What's up, party peeps? I am here back with another lecture on political participation for American national government at Snow College. My students are the best, and today we're going to talk about political participation, something I feel extremely strong about. So let's get right into the current events. Over the weekend, some really bad tornadoes, some really bad weather hit the South. I know this article says 22, but I just read that they've upped that number to 31. So yeah. I mean, it really hit Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, even Texas really hard. My brother just got a notice, I believe, over the weekend on Saturday that there might be golf ball size hail. So yeah, I mean, things were really bad, but let's hope that everything is better. The one thing that I think you guys should know about is they're opening shelters to save these people because the tornado destroyed many of their houses. So even though there's a pandemic right now and social distancing is a thing, the shelters will be open in the South to help people with no homes. Pretty scary situation. Something to keep an eye on, especially if we start seeing a bump in cases in those states. Speaking of COVID-19 and the pandemic we're going through right now, this article is saying that Americans should embrace for 18 months of this, 18 months of staying in your home. Can you guys do that? Do you think that Americans can stay in their homes for 18 months? Imagine a government telling us not to work. That's a very scary thing. This is something we should be very concerned about. We should be concerned about how much power we're giving our government, in this case, to ask us to stay home. And here's nothing. This article, this guy is a Federal Reserve president, not a doctor, not a leader. This man wasn't elected, but now here he is in front of our mass media, and this man is very powerful. He is one of the Fed presidents. There are 12, and he is telling Americans to prepare for 18 months. It makes you wonder why this man should have any kind of say at all. Again, more with COVID. Like, this is a really scary thing because in South Korea, they're finding that you can be reactivated, which is a weird way of putting it, especially it's going to get the 5G, conspiracy theorists really going. But apparently you can get sick, get better, and then a month later, you get sick again. Like all of a sudden, it has come back inside your system. That is terrifying. We're starting to see second waves in places like Japan, South Korea, even places like China and Vietnam. These are terrifying. This is terrifying news. Who knows what could happen in the very near future for America, and it's just something to keep an eye on. Here's another thing. I've heard this for literally weeks now, and this is Fox News, and it's just coming out with this like it's a brand new thing. So many of our leaders are telling me information that we already knew. We as a class have talked about this for literally months now. Think about that. Another chilling story. This is from NPR yesterday, saying that the U.S. meat supply is perilously close to a shortage, which is terrifying because, we need protein in this country. We eat a lot of meat, although, I know that other countries survive on veggies alone, and maybe this is going to be some forced vegetarianism. But if I were you, I would start stacking up those cans of Spam, start getting those deep freezers ready with as much beef as you can handle. You know what I'm saying? And on to actual American politics. Former Senate staffer, her name is Tara Reid, no relation to the C-D list actress. She is accusing Joe Biden of sexual assault. Now, there are other publications that have basically said that they don't believe her, which is interesting because when Donald Trump in 2016 had these exact same allegations, it feels like every single one of those witnesses and alleged victims were listened to, believed, and put up all over the media. Yet when the Democrats have their own scandal, it seems like places like NPR and CNN don't even want to answer the question, don't even want to talk about it. Apparently she is not to be believed. Another something to think about, but this goes deeper. By now we've all known that Biden is prone to gaffes, but this gaffe happened last November, I believe, during a Democratic debate. I'll just read this out real quickly. Former Vice President Joe Biden had some cringeworthy moments in this debate. When discussing violence against women, he said it's necessary to, quote, keep punching at it and punching at it and punching at it. who can even make this stuff up? I cannot believe, I can't believe that this is a Democratic candidate. And we did this. The people put him up there. We get the politicians we deserve. Okay, so starting on political participation and the brief lecture we're going to have today, the first question I have is in what ways do Americans participate in our political system? Now, I think the number one answer, if you guys were live in class and you were talking to me, would be obviously voting. Yes, people go to vote. And I think that is a key part of American political participation. However, I will be perhaps the only professor that you will have in your entire life to tell you that is so minuscule compared to the other ways that you can participate politically. And your participation in this democracy should not just be skin deep, and it shouldn't just be once every 2 years. Let me explain. While I think it's important that you vote, I do not believe that voting is the most important thing that you can do in this democracy at all. As a matter of fact, one of the things I've put not voting on here because, places like Australia where voting is compulsory, you get fined if you don't vote. As an American, we believe in independence and freedom. And if you don't want to vote, dude, you don't have to vote. Stay home. Let the political process play out. But on the other side of conventional political participation, you can campaign. If you believe in a candidate very strongly, you can volunteer. You can put up yard signs. You can make calls. You could go door to door. You can join the campaign. That is also a very powerful part of our American democracy. And even just giving them money. Apparently, Bernie Sanders' campaign was made up of millions of people paying just $25. And that was a very powerful message that got him a long way in the political fracas that they were going through. However, it didn't get him to the top both times. Perhaps the most powerful thing in our democracy that our Constitution completely allows us to do is to participate unconventionally. Now, voting, sure, go vote. That's totally cool. But one of the things that you can do as an American is you can protest. You can fill out, sign up for petitions, start a petition, boycott. You would be so surprised that your dollar goes much further than your vote in this country. If you gather massive amounts of people together and you decide to not buy something, you wouldn't believe how powerful that is. Demonstrations are huge. Strikes, revolts. We haven't really gotten there in this country, but we have seen right up here in this picture, we see Hong Kong. Now, while their demonstrations and their revolts and their boycotts were all cut short by the coronavirus, they were making serious headway. And they had been going for months. They were using bows and arrows to fight back against the man. We haven't gotten there yet in this country in a long time, at least in my lifetime. The closest was Occupy, and that was basically the 99% versus the 1% that happened after the 2008 crash. But if government continues to tell us that we can't go to work, what are Americans going to do? How far will we take this? Will we just shut up and stay in our homes and not say anything about it? Or will we actually stand up for ourselves and maybe just have a quiet sit-in on the streets? Maybe go and open our businesses quietly and try to be good, hardworking Americans. I don't know. We will see. I mean, this is all just conjecture at this point, but we will see how far this takes us. Voting in presidential elections in this country isn't... Look, it's not what everybody does. We can see here 3 different tiers, right? In the late 1700s, early 1800s, voting was very low, but not very many people could vote. You had to be rich and you had to be a white male. And not all white males, because you also had to be rich, right? And then we opened it up. We opened our political system up, not yet to women, but we were seeing voting in the 80s. And then after the women got the vote, we were starting to see turnout roughly about 58-57%. And this is only for presidential elections. But you'd think that's not a lot. Wait until I show you. Wait until I show you this. Voting in presidential elections has always outpaced voting in midterm elections. And let me be extremely clear. Midterm elections are just as important, if not more. Your state representative is closer to you by far than the president of the United States. And people come out and vote for the president of the United States because they feel so passionate about these politics. But every 2 years, your state representative goes up for election. That is an extremely important election. And not only that, you have other local elections, but we can see in this graph that turnout for midterms has always lagged about 20 to 30 points behind presidential elections. A lot of this has to do with the amount of money spent on presidential elections, money that can't be spent as easily during midterm elections. However, everything changed in 2018. We can see from this graph that, again, yes, the average was about 38% up until 2018. In 2018, 50% of America, right around 50% of America, came out and voted for their midterm. They started voting for the midterm election, right? And the question is why? And a lot of people have said, a lot of political scientists and a lot of conjecture has focused around the anger around a Donald Trump presidency. And that's important too. Anything that helps people get out of their homes and vote really is important. I think the most powerful message I could give to you right now is that whatever you do, whether it's acting politically conventionally or unconventionally, collective action matters. Solo, you don't form a revolt. You need others. And you can't just solo go out and vote because you need others. You need to be able to turn the polls in your favor if you're looking to start a movement. Which brings us to Anthony Downs, okay? In 1957, Dr. Anthony Downs created something that changed political science in the way we think of voting, okay? He called this voting calculus. And essentially, this equation, I promise you there's no actual math, okay? But we just need to try to understand the cost-benefit analysis into why we vote. He looked at this formula right here. This V stands for yes, I will vote or no, I will vote. And that is up in the air. That depends on this formula. Now, this P is the probability of your vote making a difference. Now, that is different for every state. Now, in Utah, the state that typically goes red 100% of the time, your vote probably will not make the difference because Utah's going to go red. So if you're a Democrat in a Republican state, you probably don't stand much of a chance. It's the same way in California. We know California goes blue 100% reliably. If you're a Republican in California, you probably don't stand the chance. So if this is close to zero, then 0 times whatever this could be, and this is the benefit of voting to a candidate, whatever number this is, 0 times anything is 0, right? So essentially this equation is saying that the benefits, if you're in a state like California or a state like Texas or Utah, your benefits to the candidate are 0. Now, what are your costs? Well, typically, the C stands for costs. We think about this in time and effort. Now, voting in the state of Utah is mostly done by mail, so the costs are extremely low. But it still takes time, a little bit of your time, which means it's got to cost, let's say, 30 cents. Now, 30 cents is greater than 0. And so by this model, by Dr. Anthony Downs' model, it would say that voting in Utah means that people would not vote in Utah. And yet we still see voting. How was Dr. Anthony Downs wrong? Well, that question is answered in the next slide. In 1968, 11 years later, Riker and Ordershuk changed the game of voting calculus by adding one central theme. You can see here it's different because they added the D. Now, the D for them stood for either duty or democracy, but essentially what it meant was civic benefit, that you derived some kind of good feeling from voting. And that changed the way we thought of it. Now we understand that people typically vote because it makes them feel good, even if it has nothing to do with the election. That's all the time I have. I will see you guys on Wednesday. We'll keep talking about participation. I hope you guys have the greatest couple days of your lives, and I will see you on Wednesday. That's it. I'm out. See you guys later.